What's up, Sox fans? My name is Jake Iggy, or Iggy for short, and this is BoSox Talk, the fast way for you to find your Red Sox news weekly. So buckle up for this one, because I have a lot of news to uncover, as this has been a very long and frustrating week for the Boston Red Sox, as COVID-19 has essentially taken over this Red Sox roster. They currently have 11 players and 3 coaches on the COVID reserve list. That has also meant that Chaim Bloom, the front office, has had to call up multiple AAA players to be able to fill those voids on the Red Sox depth chart. So essentially right now it looks like, if you look at the Red Sox lineup, a AAA team. But their resiliency throughout the Rays series and the Indians series over this past week has been very impressive and really shows how this Red Sox team can get through anything with this roster. So it started off with Kike Hernandez getting tested positive for COVID-19, and then the dominoes just kept on falling with Christian Arroyo, Xander Bogaerts, Matt Barnes, Sawamura, Martin Perez, and then because Martin Perez and Barnes were put on the COVID list, Goodwin, the first base coach, as well as reliever Josh Taylor, were named as close contacts. Then they also had to go on the COVID-19 list. And then some replacements like Jarren Duran and Yairo Munoz also got tested positive. And the latest announcement was yesterday afternoon when Nick Pivetta, who was supposed to start Sunday's game against the Indians, tested positive. Now it seems like every single day throughout this past week, new news has come out about this COVID-19 outbreak throughout the Red Sox roster. And Chaim Bloom described it as gut-wrenching. Over the last 7 days, the Red Sox have a record of 4-3 and split the series against the Rays in Tampa Bay, and then won 2 out of 3 against the Indians at Fenway. Now, looking at the Red Sox pitching over this past week, there's not too much that you can really criticize looking at the situation currently, especially with how many of their bullpen arms are currently on the COVID reserve list. And it got so bad that the Red Sox had to trade for Brad Peacock from the Indians this past week, who has mainly spent most of his time in AAA. Peacock pitched against the Rays and allowed 5 earned runs in 2 innings. But for the most part, the pitching has been able to hold things down, even though their overall ERA over this past week is a 5.02. As I mentioned, most of the starters in this lineup are on the COVID list, but this offense has still been able to get things done. Players like JD Martinez, Hunter Renfroe, and Kyle Schwarber have been coming up clutch. And Schwarber is also a guy who has mainly been in the leadoff spot throughout this week. And it's really shown that that is the key spot that the Red Sox need to keep him in the lineup. It seems like anytime Schwarber comes to the plate, he always finds a way to get on base. Now, going into this next week, the Red Sox are going to be playing the Rays at Fenway, and they are still 8 games out of the AL East. But even through all this COVID mess, they still have a 3.5 game lead over the Athletics in the second wildcard spot. I had the opportunity to ask Red Sox beat writer Ian Brown what his thoughts were on these COVID outbreaks, as well as his reaction to the Rays series.
Well, it's been a whirlwind 10 days or so for these Boston Red Sox. In these last 10 days alone, they've put 11 players on the COVID-19 related IL. That's just unfathomable to see 11 players on that list at once. But the Red Sox have actually rallied together and played some of their best baseball in a while in spite of all this. Especially impressive was after losing the first 2 games against the Tampa Bay Rays to come back and win the next 2 games of that series, salvage a split behind Chris Sale, behind Eduardo Rodriguez, who might have had his best game of the season there. And this COVID thing, maybe it's good for the Red Sox. Maybe some of the pressure's off and they're kind of free a little bit and not putting so much pressure on themselves. And it's going to be a fascinating final month of the season here. I'm really looking forward to it. This is Ian Brown, Red Sox beat writer for MLB.com.